On a spacious office desk, there is a purple book with a delicately decorated cover. The sunlight shone through the window, making the appearance of this book clearer. At this moment, a hand wearing black gloves touched the book and caressed it. Subsequently, the voice of an unfamiliar man rang out in this room. There was once a great philosopher who said a sentence: "All death is the beginning of new life." It seems quite reasonable now that I think about it. This unfamiliar man is currently in a luxurious room. He sat on a spacious chair with his coat behind it. He picked up the purple book from his desk and introduced himself. "My name is Moon, and my full name is Moon Campbell. This is my current name." At that moment, the sunlight outside the window revealed the appearance of the man named Moon. He had blonde hair and a pair of blue eyes. He held his chin in his right hand and held the book in his left hand, moving gracefully like a beautiful boy. Moon went on to describe the special nature of his identity. "That's right, I'm a traveler, and my way of traveling is..." To explain why Moon became a blonde and beautiful young man, it has to start with an unexpected event in his past life. At dusk, a mischievous little cat ran onto a big road. Just as the kitten was happily playing on the road, a big red lorry was about to drive by. A girl wearing a school uniform saw this scene and immediately rushed out from the side of the road and pounced on the kitten. Moon's voice rang out. "My way of traveling is still classic and outdated." After saving the kitten, the girl held it in her arms. However, the dump truck is already heading towards the girl and the kitten. The girl tightly hugged the kitten, knelt on the ground, and looked at the large truck in front of her in shock, already at a loss. However, the protagonist in this scene is a girl. What is the connection between this and Moon? Halfway through the story, Moon suddenly popped out of the frame. He tilted his head and looked ahead, as if wondering if the audience had any questions about the scene description above. Why is the person above a girl? No, brother. Returning to the scene just now, the driver of the dump truck noticed that someone had not had time to escape, so he suddenly turned the steering wheel to avoid them. However, unfortunately, the dump truck crashed into a dirt wall next to the road. And because of this violent impact, the big lorry has burst into flames and surrounded the whole lorry. In the truck that was engulfed in flames, the driver's head was bleeding profusely due to severe injuries. Obviously, he had lost consciousness and leaned against the steering wheel. His body was also surrounded by flames. That's right, this male with yellow hair and wearing blue work clothes is Moon's past life. This is me, the truck driver who drifted and slammed himself into a wall to create death to avoid saving a little cat girl, is me. In this way, the soul of Moon's past life crossed from the real world into a world of light novel. So, I arrived at a world of light novels that I had been reading before my death. A magical world made up of sword and magic. The continent of Matthias. There is a very magnificent castle in front of us now. This castle is magnificent, and the decoration is very gorgeous. It belongs to the Duke of Campbell. Unlike the middle-aged corporate slave who worked tirelessly every day to make a living in my past life, I am now the only son of the 4 dukes of the empire. The Lionheart King, Grand Duke Campbell. In the castle, a blonde woman in a black halter nightgown happily hugged Moon tightly in her arms and kept stroking his head with her hand. Moon was a bit overwhelmed by the impact of her twin peaks, but was not in a position to struggle out of her embrace. A man stood silently behind them, watching their interaction with kindly eyes. The Duke and Duchess, who are considered to be of high status in this world, are my parents who love me so much. This is a brief introduction to Moon's family background. Next, Moon will introduce one by one the partners he has met. The third princess of the Empire, known as the Pure White Girl, and the future Queen of Ice. The third princess of the Empire mentioned by Moon is named Cecilia Leopold. She has long white hair and a pair of blue eyes. She was wearing a white dress that could reflect her figure, perfectly embodying the unique temperament of a princess. And this gentle and elegant princess is about to become the most important person in Moon's life. She is my future wife. She lay shyly on the ground, her eyes dodging, but there was also a hint of expectation inside. She seems to have a side that we don't know about. The girl to be introduced next is named Anna Kablin. She has long black hair with a red hair tie tied to the left of her hair. She was wearing a red student uniform, clearly a student. She lifted her cheek and looked ahead, her movements very cute. Known as the Black Witch of Santa Maria, she is a super beautiful girl who also serves as the president and librarian of the Ancient Potion Society. She is my most respected schoolmate, one level higher than me. Although she is the person that Moon respects the most, Anna, who is so lovely, actually has some unknown things. Look, she's holding a feather and gently teasing Moon lying on her lap like a puppy. She looked at him with a teasing expression. Moon held a bone in his mouth and looked at her with a wooden expression, his face looking a bit bad. Oh, by the way, it's also known as the strongest human in the world. This girl wearing a mage robe and a black dress. Her name is Mela Demille. Although she looks relatively small, she is someone who can master various types of magic. Well, it's this little girl with white hair and red eyes. She is my mentor. She looked ahead with a teasing expression, seeming to look like she had a side to her that the others didn't know about. After introducing so many female companions around him, according to the development of the story, shouldn't Moon be the one with the protagonist's aura? However, he closed his eyes and spread his hands, muttering to himself. At this point, some people will say, "You have money and power and beautiful girls. Aren't you a definite winner in life?" He put his hand into his bangs, with a helpless expression on his face. Ha! At first, I thought the same thing, but... Suddenly, Moon opened his eyes and looked ahead with a weathered expression. I'm not the protagonist. It turned out that in this world that Moon was in, he himself was not the main character. The real protagonist was someone else. Standing here from left to right are Anna, the brave person Ariel Bugard, and the holy maiden Leah Angel. They are the true protagonists of this world. I have been following this book for 2 years, and it is a world with talented women as the main characters. The real protagonist is a girl. A girl. However, Moon is different from them. His character's setting in this world was a camp opposite to theirs. Moon walked in front wearing a gray school uniform. He was followed by some students who looked like delinquents around him. It looked like the environment of the school Moon wasn't too good. And I, Moon Campbell, am just a yellow-haired villain in this book. I am the kind of idiot that the protagonist team will inevitably encounter on their growth path, who specializes in causing destruction and giving the protagonist growth experience. I'm like the classic goblin that everyone passing by has to kill a few to train themselves. Then, Moon turned the book in his hand to a certain page, and excitedly pointed to a few big characters on the book. The words written in black ink on this page are irreversible, predicted destiny. The most frustrating thing is that this damn prophecy book told me that I couldn't change this fate. Otherwise, I would die faster. It turned out that the book in Moon's hand was the book of prophecy. Words already written down in the book meant that the person's fate could no longer be changed. Seeing that he couldn't change his predetermined fate, Moon had no other choice. He sighed, closed the book, and stood up from his seat. This doesn't work. That doesn't work. Then I have no choice but to use my trump card. Moon left his desk and sat on his arse, sitting on the sofa next to him. He lay down on the couch in a crooked position, with a tired expression on his face. He tossed the book of prophecy onto the bed behind him in one fell swoop. I've completely given up, guys. The ship will sink naturally at the bridgehead. Let me enjoy my time as a noble young master before my inevitable fate comes. Suddenly, Moon thought of such a thing. He touched his chin and looked ahead with contempt. Hey, since I was reincarnated as a noble young master, is there a possibility that a 1.75 meter tall, versatile, and super beautiful black-haired maid sister would say to me, "Young master, I like you the most. Please go out with me?" Moon thought for a moment. As the villain of this world, how could anyone like him? Realizing his character's setting in this world, he couldn't help but cover his mouth with his hand and burst into laughter. How can this be possible? The original owner of this body is the Empire's notorious, everyone crying scum. How could anyone possibly like that? At this moment, a maid walked into Moon's room. "Young master." Upon hearing the sound, Moon was a bit scared and immediately turned around to look at her. He seemed unaware that someone had walked into his room. The woman wearing a maid outfit that reflects her figure is named An. She looked at Moon and said to him seriously, "And likes young master." Moon seemed somewhat surprised by Anne's words. He closed his eyes and lightly tapped his forehead with his hand, as if trying to conceal his embarrassment. Ah, really? He doesn't know if anyone really likes him. He whispered in his heart. I didn't expect someone to really like me. Suddenly, Anne activated his own magic. She lifted her hand forward. The red energy emanating from the surroundings enveloped her body. Subsequently, these red energies formed chains and flew towards Moon. Yes, technically, my feelings for the young master are not fondness. Moon was directly bound by these chains. He looked at the chains on his body in horror, then looked up at Anne, not knowing what had happened now. At this point, Anne continued speaking what she had just said. It's love. Moon watched as Anne took a step towards him, feeling that the current situation seemed a little bad. While launching her magic to control the chains, Anne took her long black silk legs and slowly walked towards him. I will fulfill all the capricious requests of the young master. She walked up to Moon and suddenly stuck one of her legs between Moon's two legs. Moon was clearly startled by her actions. "I will eliminate all the insects around the young master." So, she approached Moon, her twin peaks tightly pressed against his body. She reached out a hand and lifted Moon's chin, forcing Moon to look at her. Moon was at a loss for words, not knowing what to say for a moment, but could only stare at this maid, who was behaving strangely in front of him, and softly uttered that heavy sentence. "You become something that belongs only to me." Perhaps it was due to the use of magic that Anne exhaled a warm breath. This made Moon's face itch. She gazed at Moon with deep affection and tenderness. But little did she know, her eyes contained a strong desire to monopolize Moon, and she had long wanted to take Mu for herself. "Young master." She softly called out Moon in a tone containing special emotions.